Hello and welcome to 10 Minute Takes. We are Jim and Sam, and this is the show where we like to give you our rating first. Then we talk about the things we did and did not like about the show that we just watched. Today's show is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Sam, are you ready to give our rating for the wonderful Mrs. Wonderful? Or is it wonderful? The Marvelous. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. All right. Our rating system is either a loved it, liked it, it's okay. The reason we don't do didn't like it, because if we didn't like it, we wouldn't finish the show and we wouldn't do a review on it. So Sam, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Loved it. Oh, really?
Yeah. I was a little apprehensive at first, but yes.
It was amazing. I love this show. This is my favorite show.
All right, so Sam, for someone that's not familiar with the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you want to give a little breakdown of what this is?
Yeah, so this is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is about a woman in the late 50s who is trying to pursue a career in comedy and faces all of the things that a woman who is trying to be a comedian during this time period has to face. She's also having a lot of drama at home as well as drama with her family and the comedian life, and it's a very fun TV show. It's a very fun TV show to watch and enjoy. Her comedy's amazing. The drama's amazing. Her outfits are amazing. It's just super exciting.
Ooh, look at that hat. Look at that other hat. That's another amazing hat. Look at all the hats out here.
I said nothing about the hats.
Yeah, but that's what she says when they go to Paris in the first episode.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of me because I was like, ooh, that dress.
No, she's literally talking about all the hats that she sees in Paris when they get to Paris in episode 1.
The whole thing and the whole season. This was way better than the first one. Well, this was just as good as the first season.
Okay, let's talk about the first episode real quick. So for me, the first episode is actually the reason why I was apprehensive, because I actually didn't really like the first episode of this season that much.
Remind me what happened in the first episode that you didn't like.
They go to Paris to go get...
I was I didn't really like that at first too, until I realized that her mother was trying to find herself in the way that her daughter was, and it was kind of her way of roundabout telling her daughter, like her own way of telling her daughter that she can be her own person. I think that's my takeaway of it.
The reason
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I didn't like it because I felt like the comedy was very mean-spirited, and they packed... The writer and director of this is the writer and director of Gilmore Girls. What she would do in Gilmore Girls is that she would ratchet up the tension between two characters, and then those characters would have a big fight. In one instance, Rory and Lorelai, when Rory wanted to go to Chilton, Lorelai couldn't pay for it, so Rory...
I love that I have seen it enough that you know very specific details of Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, well then Rory goes to the grandparents to get the grandparents to pay for Chilton. The grandparents agree. Rory and then Lorelai have this really big fight. And those fights are very tense.
Yeah, because Dean, she wanted to stay with Dean. Like, of course she wasn't going to go. She didn't want to go.
So that fight was a build-up over a course of a couple episodes. And that fight was kind of like uncomfortable. It's like, oh man, they can be kind of hard to watch at times. And I felt like this first episode was that fight over and over and over and over again in that first episode. And it wore on me. I didn't like it. I was wondering when we're going to get to the more of the chummy back and forth that this writer-director is known for, that she has in Gilmore Girls. And I wasn't getting that in the first episode.
I can agree.
I like the bickering back and forth, the playful bickering. This was mean bickering. Now, episode 2 is where we get back to the foundation of what I like about this writer-director. The husband and wife have more of a playful banter in this episode, and we get back to that playful banter.
Okay.
Now, this is where the show really drew me back in.
Yeah, and I think that particular couple needed to go through that. They needed to go through the angry stages to get to that point. But that's how... I'm not going to talk about Gilmore Girls because I could talk about that all day, so never mind. But I really think that they needed that. And the second episode, yes, definitely brings you back into the TV show and what you really loved about it. And then from there on, it was just...
like the husband in the Paris cafe with his friends, and they're bickering about like the Bible and religion.
That was fun.
And then the husband and the wife go out touring around Paris. And then when they go look in the apartment, the wife's like, we can live here. And then the husband's like, we need to go back home, though.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't a bickering scene, but it was like one of those moments where the husband's like, we don't have a life here. We need to go back home. It was more of a serious moment, but the episode built up to it.
Yeah.
And I liked that about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get back to America, the show then picks up its steam and it starts rolling along. And it really just forges full steam ahead and doesn't really slow down.
Yeah.
And we get back into the playful banter of what I really, really liked about this writer-director and her style. Now, the rest of the series, I actually just really liked all of the rest of the episodes. So it was just those first 2 episodes left me a little sort of like, I'm not sure if this is going to be something I'm going to enjoy all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
But once we got back into the flow of the regular, of how this writer-director does her thing, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so now with the rest of the series, she goes to the camp. I actually thought the camp stuff was a lot of fun.
The camp was so much fun. It was all Dirty Dancing style. It was, It brought you back to that movie, without all of the exact details of Dirty Dancing, but it was a lot of fun. Like the life that was like at those kind of, sleepaway camps for adults. I don't know. What do you call those?
It's like a summer camp that adults go to do activities and stuff.
Yeah, and it was really fun to watch because it was all... It's where they really had that bickering back and forth. Her manager came out and had a really funny bit the entire time when she was there, and she has a plunger and she's walking around and people think she's a part of it. And she got to feel a little bit of what family would be like if she had a family that she could go to. So it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and this is where she meets, or Mrs. Maisel
meets her new love interest.
Yeah, and it's Zachary Levi.
Shazam.
Yeah, the guy that plays Shazam. This is where she meets him, and they have this weird dynamic where he's a doctor and he's not interested in normal people, and so he's sort of
he's looking for somebody who's a little bit different in the 50s.
Yeah, more weird and out there.
Who's weird out there, who's not the traditional girl that wants to, I don't know, typical 50s woman. I don't know how to express that.
No, he's looking for something that's weird and different.
Yeah.
And he's not looking for someone that's just like, oh, you're a doctor. I want to marry you for your practice and all this stuff. And for the procedure of being with you. He wants someone, he likes the fact that she does stand-up comedy. When he finds out that she does that, he's like, that is amazing.
But he also really takes in her quirks. The way her ex-husband wasn't able, or her husband, who's still her husband in this, but the way her husband just couldn't appreciate, and it really brought his self-esteem down, and he wasn't able to control it. So to be able to find somebody like that in the 50s, it was definitely empowering to see. Because it was the 50s. It wasn't about, women. It was women weren't comedians back then. So this is really a movie about the way that women comedian came to light and were respected a lot more.
What did you think of the doctor relationship in this? Did you like that?
I did.
Because I liked it a lot too.
I really wish that they had started off in that relationship.
That was actually probably one of my favorite parts of this season.
She needed to go through it.
Her relationship with him was probably one of my favorite parts of this season. Partly because just Zachary Levi did it so well. He's a good actor.
He is.
You might know him from, if you don't recognize him, he's from Chuck. He did a series called Chuck where he played an IT guy who gets pulled into being a government agent of some kinds by accident.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what he's well known for.
He was really good in this.
He is really good. His relationship with Maisel, they play off of each other so well. I feel like they play off of each other better than Maisel and the husband do.
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be off right now. They're not supposed to be charming with each other. Because in the first season, the first half of the first season, before everything hits the fan, they have kind of a bantery back and forth relationship that she has with this new guy, but obviously it falls apart because he cheats on her, because whatever. So he does his thing, and then their relationship falls apart, and she gets to have a playful, bantery relationship with this new guy. And they have the same common interests too. And they have the same common interests, but they also are able to share their interests without the other person thinking that it's, dumb or stupid or something like that. They're able to really open up with each other.
Yeah. And then after that, the show transitions to Mrs. Maisel going on tour with her manager. Mm-hmm. She gets a bunch of tour dates, and there's a couple of episodes where they go from city to city touring. What did you think of those episodes? Was there anything
it was great. First of all, I think that Mrs. Maisel, Midge, needed to go to those hotels to just realize that her life is as exceptional as it is, and she's very lucky to have what she had. So I think that her going to these hotels and experiencing that was really good for Midge's character. Mm-hmm. And I really love her manager. What is her manager's name in this?
I can't remember.
She was supposed to be Sookie in Gilmore Girls, but then they had Melissa McCarthy. But anyways, not important. Her character, the bond between them really grew for them to respect each other. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens in the next season because of the proposal that the manager got.
Yeah, do you think it's going to be... I don't know, to me, I just don't see that like being a big issue. I'm not sure why that would be a big issue.
I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I don't think that she's actually going to be the other comedian's manager. I think it's going to cause some sort of rift between Midge and her for a little bit, and then they'll find their way back together.
The only thing that I can see is that there'd just be more money with the other comedian.
Well, yeah, there'd be a ton more money.
That could cause a rift between Midge and her manager. Now, you said it at one point. We were, I don't know, like 5 or 6 episodes into the season, and you made a comment like, where's all the stand-up comedy that was from the first?
I missed a little bit of that in the beginning, and then the second half of the show brought a lot of it back. But I did miss a lot of the stand-up that I was kind of yearning to see in this season.
Yeah, I can't remember what the first stand-up act was, but I know the one I remember the most is when she got up to do stand-up in a club that was featured all men, and then they all pushed her to the end, and then at the end of the act, when she gets up, she's got like mustard on her dress, and she just rips into all the comedians, and the club manager loses his mind.
Well, there's a scene where the club manager loses her mind because she goes back up and talks about pregnancy. I mean, these are the things that women had to face as a comedian in the 50s, and that was that pure moment of the WTF moment that you had to see watching this, that women had to go through that because they couldn't talk about pregnancy in the lightest way. Like, she was talking about it in a very light manner, mm-hmm. and he still ripped her off stage, and you're just sitting there pissed off at this guy. Like, really? Everybody was laughing. Everybody was having a good time. And so I hope in the 3rd season, she really gets to pick that up, and, her comedian style is going to start picking up, and she's really going to start rolling with it.
Now, the show ends with her doing a comedy act for a telethon pledge to raise money for Alzheimer's. And at this telethon thing that she does, she comes across a pop star, or like what is the equivalent of a 50s pop star.
Yeah.
And she absolutely crushes it in her segment. This pop star falls in love with her. He then calls her. It's like, hey, I want you to go on tour with me when I go to Europe.
Fan.
Yeah. And he's like, I want you to go on tour with me in Europe. I want you to open for me. And she just says yes. And then when she says yes,
she starts to get hit with all of the things that she's going to have to leave. Yeah, she has this like weird emotion that she's going through.
Now, my question to you is that, do you actually think that with the way the season ended, do you think they're taking the doctor character out of it? Do
yes.
you think See, I'd hate that. That would really rub me the wrong way.
I don't think that he is gonna... I don't know if his character wants to continue. I don't know if him as an actor wants to continue because he's doing so well elsewhere.
So I don't want her to get back with the husband. I absolutely do not want that to happen.
Well, I mean, nobody does. But, I mean, it's the 50s, the late 50s. It's a little bit different.
I know.
But I don't think they're going to get back together, but I don't think that the doctor is going to be sticking around. I never thought from the get-go he was going to be sticking around. When they were looking at wedding pictures, I was like, this isn't going to happen. But you can stay hopeful, Midge. It's okay. Those wedding dresses are cute. It's fine.
So,
I think you really should watch the first season. We should sit down and watch the first season again.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I saw you watching it.
I binged it, and I watched 5 episodes one night, and then I was getting too tired, and I watched one the next day because I loved it. And I'm also, since I am a diehard fan of Gilmore Girls, I've seen it way too many times for anybody's good health. I should stay away from that show. But the only reason I even started watching this was because of the writer, and I was blown away by the first season.
Yeah, this is
so
essentially
excited to see the second season.
I'd say this is essentially an R-rated version of Gilmore Girls that takes place in the 1950s.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I described it. Like when I was watching you watching it, I was like, oh, this is like an R-rated version of Gilmore Girls. The way they talk.
It's like no wonder Sam's obsessed with it.
It's the same pace. It's the same stylized approach, just with cussing and swearing in it.
It's a different, time period. And you were saying that you were not surprised that she did a timepiece after Gilmore Girls. Why was that?
Because the way she writes Gilmore Girls, there's all kinds of references to like old timely movies and stuff. When Lorelai and Rory are talking to each other, they'll like quote like movies from the 1950s and 40s.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes sense to me that this writer would then go back to something that I feel like was inspiring to her. Timeline. Timeline
was an inspiration.
But yeah, I wasn't too excited about the ending of this season with her and the husband character in that final scene.
See, I totally understood that. I understood what she was doing.
I get it. It was a little disappointing, but
like I said, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to last. I think that relationship is always going to go back and forth. And either they're going to reconcile.
It was like that in Gilmore Girls too, until finally.
Luke and Lorelai.
Well, not even just Luke and Lorelai. It was Rory, Dean, and Jesse. It was a constant back and forth, and then Rory randomly winds up.
Don't even get me started with who should have won that battle, Dean or Jesse.
I mean, I feel like Maisel is Rory, and then she's stuck between Dean and Jesse. Jesse's sort of like the bad boy.
No, I think this is its own flavor. I think her middle point of the doctor and her ex-husband is a whole different flavor of discussion. I don't think it's anything like.
I think it's exactly.
Jesse.
It's exactly like it.
I don't know. I think it's different.
I mean, it's different, but I mean that the approach, the love triangle approach, you got a girl that's stuck between sort of like the good guy and.
Yeah, but
and not to say the husband's like a bad boy.
That love triangle between the three of them wasn't. Let's get back to Mrs. Maisel. I'm thinking Gilmore Girls too much right now.
But I mean, that's even Lorelai between like Luke and her ex-husband.
That was stupid. She was destined to be with Luke from the beginning. It's dumb.
So this writer does a lot of love triangles, but she's good at
it though.
At pulling you like towards one way, like, oh, she should be with that guy, and then like, no, she's gonna go to that guy. I never thought that
Lorelai should be with Chris. It was Luke forever.
He was married.
Luke is life.
And his wife was pregnant.
You know what? No, because she didn't know that she was pregnant, and they were on a break, and Chris didn't know she was pregnant. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. We can do an entire segment on that, and I will.
How funny is it that I know all this?
You because I watch it every day of my life.
So the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you got my perspective on it. You got Sam's. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I feel like I covered my bases, things I did and didn't like about this season.
I did too. I don't think there was anything that I tremendously didn't like. The beginning of the season wasn't the start that I necessarily wanted. I'm really happy on how much they gave the manager more screen time. Mm-hmm. I thought it lacked a little bit of the stand-up, but the comedy was there the entire time. You don't miss out on it. Hopefully in the next season we get to see a little bit more stand-up. But
the one thing I will say is that even though I was conflicted with the ending, me being conflicted with the ending is a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that It's
not confliction to where it's like, oh, I don't want to watch the show ever again. It sucks. It's confliction where it's like, I'm conflicted. Like, I want her to go in one specific way because they made one character so likable for me. And that
you're
the
gonna
way
have a
that
hard
ended-
time when they break up, if they break up.
and the way it ended, I want to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Because the way they cut to black at the very end of the show, where they didn't give you the aftermath, it's very quick and it leaves you like, what is about to just happen?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very good thing. I'm not saying what I'm saying in a bad manner.
No, I don't think you are either. I think it's
Just to make that clear. I will say I do greatly appreciate the cinematography, the set design, the attention to detail to the era that this shoots in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in a similar manner the way I appreciate Mad Men. I almost feel like this is like
the girl version of Mad Men.
In a way, yeah. And it's one of the reasons why I actually really like this show, because it's just, from a visual standpoint, it's just a feast to take in.
Oh,
and
sure.
I'm someone that likes a visual approach to a show.
Yeah.
And this is one of Amazon Prime's best. I will fight people on that. I think this is a great show. Amazon Prime, they keep on giving us content like, if they can give us Homecoming 1 month and then give us the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel the next month, they're doing something great over there.
I think, to be fair, we don't watch as much Amazon Prime TV shows as we could.
Yeah, there's also...
Suggestions are welcome to what shows we should be watching on Amazon Prime.
Well, we watched Jack Ryan, Homecoming, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel this year. There's a few that we haven't watched. Like, we haven't watched Bosch. We haven't watched Man in the High Castle.
I started watching that, bought the book. I want to read the book first before I start from season 1, but I don't know. It's a hard book to read. Like, from that
people
standpoint.
here.
Okay. Well, I have to go.
Okay. That's it for you. That's it for me. All right. Thanks for watching. Sam's got to go. We're leaving now. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks for liking. Comment and like if you want to see more. Subscribe. Bye-bye.